Welcome back to Jatai Academy. I'm Russell Mays, Director of Content, and today we're going to be doing an in-depth study of how to do a pixie inspired by Halle Berry. She has great pixies, and they're all different kind of lengths, from really short and really clean to a little longer, a little more medium. But the thing that I think they have in common is they're all almost the same length all the way around. So we're going to show you how to get a little bit of softness around the edges without it looking mullety. We're going to show you how to get the right texture to it so you can have some fullness and some length without it starting to feel bulky and kind of old-fashioned. So to get started here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the top of the head from the bottom of the head. So separating the bottom of the head, I can work with just the short part. Then the top part's going to be a lot easier once I got all this fitted in. Because to make sure that this gets fitted in around the edges and still be feminine is something that's going to take a little bit of detailing. So we're going to deal with that first. Deal with the hard parts first. I'm going to take the center of the recession straight back to the quarter part to the occipital bone. That's going to give me the whole right underneath side. Now from here, I'm going to section off at an angle right at the front of the hairline, which is going to be parallel to this hairline right behind the ear and parallel to that hairline right at the front. I find that by going parallel to my partings, it has a nicer flow to it and it fits the head shape better if I work within the boundaries of the hairline. Now I'm going to go through and use my feather styling razor in the limited edition wood grain. This is my favorite. I think it looks cool, and I'm using the Type R blade. The Type R blade exposes more of the cutting blade, so I can cut more hair at one time, but I do have to be a little more conscientious because it is exposing a little bit more blade. So we're going to start right here in the front at my first angle. And I think that what really makes this kind of pixie pop and still is a little feminine. I've looked at a lot of pictures of Halle Berry's haircut, and a lot of them will have a little bit of graduation here on the side. So I'm going to start putting a little bit of graduation into it, but we have to be careful to not get too much weight stacking up so that it starts to look kind of frumpy. So that determines I'm going to take a very broad stroke so that I can cut my shape and cut my length without building up a whole lot of weight. So I'm going to hold this parallel, and then my fingers will determine what angle of graduation that I'm going to start with. So I'm going to start with something about there, and I'm going to take a very broad razor stroke all the way down and through. Now at this point, I want to look at it and see how that's fitting in. I like the lengths of it, but I can tell already that it's going to start building up too much weight. So as I start to go through, I may start doing some channel cutting to remove some of that weight. Our next section, which is parallel to that first section, comb this into the first section, hold out from the head, find the angle that I was working on before. There it is underneath, I can see that. Try to take a nice broad razor stroke like I was doing before. Cut that all the way down and through, and then check and see. And I think we've got a little too much length here on the top. So before I start going all the way through, I'm going to take some of that length off the top, and I think that that's looking better already. That's looking better. Now I'm going to go through and put a little bit of delicate channeling through here to remove some of that weight and see how it's looking. There we go. I like that. Now we're going to take our next section, which is going to be parallel, and I'm running that all the way down in through the nape. So I've got my first, second, now my third section. I'll remove the first section. Now I will have the second and third section. Hold that out. There's my guide from underneath. A nice broad stroke as we go down and through. That's looking pretty good. Now right here, as I get to the middle of the ear, I can either choose to have more length down here on the bottom and make it kind of a wayfish pixie, or I can fit this in really tight. Hold this parallel, same stroke, and cut this parallel to my parting. So that's my parting, that's the line I'm cutting. Now we're going to take our next section, which is going to be parallel to the same, and I'm going to keep working this same methodology until I get to the center back of the head. Now we're going to take the last section right here, holding it out from the head with the previously cut section as my guide. Cut that down and through, and I like that. I'm going to take a little bit of channeling through here just to remove some weight and create a little separation. So now I'm going to go through and do the exact same thing on the other side. All right, so I've gone through and separated the front half from the back half of the head. It's very important that I make this back half fit in and follow a head shape. If it starts to get too short, I'll make the head look flat in the back, and then that looks really ridiculous, and nobody wants to have a flat head. Take my center section. Now when I hold this out from the head, I can see the angle of graduation that I already have here underneath, and I want to continue that up and bevel it out. Hold that out. There's my guide from underneath. A little bit longer as I start to go up. Once I go past one flat section, I will go to the next flat section, hold that 90 degrees. There's my length. Continue that up. When I get to the top, all the way away and through. Now from here, I'm going to pivot from the center piece that I had up there and make a little pie section as I work around to the side. Hold these two together. There's my guide from underneath, and follow the same shape that I was working on underneath as I work back up, following my guideline. Follow us on your favorite social media at Jatai Feather. Pivoting again. Remove the center guideline that I had. So now I only have section 2 and section 3. Hold this up and out. There's my guide from underneath. Cut a little bit. Recomb. Cut a little bit. Recomb. Follow that all the way up to the very top. Then I'm just going to continue working this until I reach my quarter part. So there's my guide from underneath and my previously cut guide. Now I'm going to go through and do the same thing on the other side. So I'll take a horizontal section to my very first parting that I had, which separated the top from the bottom. I'm going to hold this out, determine the length from underneath, and then go through, lift this straight up and out. There's my guide from underneath, and continue the same broad stroke, holding this horizontally straight out from the head towards me, not lowering my elevation to build up any weight, but continuing this straight up. My next section is going to be parallel. Take my section underneath, hold this straight out towards me. There's my guide underneath. And then go through and cut everything to blend. I could leave this longer if I was going for more of a Tinkerbell type of Pixie, or where she had more length on the top. You can take this parallel and make it all short on the top, like a lot of her pictures were. We're going to make everything nice and short, but you could certainly go through and leave this a lot longer and disconnect it. A nice, broad, soft razor stroke. So I'm working through there. And I'll go all the way till I reach the center of the head and hold everything straight out, elevation coming towards me, making sure that I'm not lowering my elevation, and keep everything nice and broad and soft. And so what that does is that also gives me a nice curved shape on the side of the head as well as the back of the head. All right, so we've got the underneath cut. So now let's go through and take a center section and start dealing with our excess length on the top. I got my center section. I'm going to hold that straight up in the air. There's my length from underneath. I'm going to turn the razor over and go through without moving my left hand, just razor the top of that off. Keep a nice broad stroke and gradually increase the length as I go towards the front. There's my next piece. Get some of that hair out of the way. There's my guide. Now at this point, the head is starting to curve, but I'm not curving with it. I'm continuing to go straight with it. That will leave me a little bit of extra length in the front that I can go through and fit that in later to make sure that the bang length is exactly the length that I want. I don't have to get it right now. Now I'm going to take a parallel section walking to the left side. I'm going to comb the center section and this left section together. There's my guide from underneath. Let's go through, cut that length, working from back to front. Take my next parallel section, comb that straight up. There's my guide from underneath, and as I start to get to the left side, you'll notice I'm running out of hair because I've already cut everything to blend in with the side. So all I have to do is make sure I get the length on top, the length I want. And there's nothing else to blend through there. Perfect. So now I'll go back to the center, find my original guide, which is right there, and then I'm going to add my next section and do the same thing on the other side. Give us a thumbs up, click subscribe and the notification bell to be notified of future Jatai Academy content. Now let's go through and fit in our bang section, and I'm just going to take a horizontal section straight across from recession to recession. Take a little piece right here in the middle, a nice broad long stroke through there. I think a little more. We're going to make sure we get some good separation through there. And all I'm doing is looking at that center piece to see where that fits, and I think that that's going to be okay. Now we're going to take our next piece next to it. I'm not picking up a guide. I'm just visually going to cut to try to fit this in its area where it lives. So I'm not using a guide other than just visually looking and seeing what looks right. And pray a little bit and make sure I don't cut everything off completely. We're going to comb everything down. There's a little piece right there. Fit that in. Perfect. Right here. No guide, just purely visually fitting this in around the front. Now we're going to take the next piece, comb this down. Anything that hangs over and looks too thick, I'm going to go through and fine tune. Take a little bit of the weight out through there. A little bit here. I'm surface cutting right on the top, so I cut the top layer shorter, not the underneath that I've already cut. just to see if anything hangs over. If something starts to get too thick like that, then I'll go through and start fine-tuning that as well to make sure I get my separation like I got underneath. I think the razor really lends itself to creating the perfect shape for this type of haircut, because while it still gives it a strong shape, there's enough softness and separation and looseness to it that it can really look lived in and still remain very glamorous. So let's blow it dry and see what we got. Here's our end result, and I think that we got a really nice shape, especially around the crown, so you can get it short and full but still have a nice pleasing head shape to it. I also think that we have a nice kind of soft perimeter shape around the edge, and on these mannequin heads and somebody with really thick pokey hair, this is kind of hard to achieve, so you want to make sure that you compensate for however much inverted graduation that you put back here so that you leave a little bit of softness around the edges. We've got a nice little bit of graduation to it without it looking too bulky or too bowly, and I think that looks pretty good. The bangs, you know, you can do so many different things with them. You can kind of sweep them over, get them up out of the way. You know, you can have them kind of come down, whatever is your preference and whatever the style of Halle Berry Pixie that you're going for. So please check out the Jatai Academy. There's all kinds of fantastic information on there that will make you a better hairstylist and barber. Also, let us know what you'd like to see in the future. And thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.